But what is neuropsych assessment? Well, neuropsych assessment, this is my definition, is a specialized type of psychological assessment that evaluates various domains of functioning in depth using objective and valid tests and procedures that are specific to brain injury and brain disease. What we're talking about today is neuropsych screening, which is an assessment of the abbreviated form. It's also looking at the different domains, but it's often situation and referral specific. So specifically, in this case, I'm thinking of SSI evaluations or initial screening evaluations, or maybe even follow-up to neuropsych assessment that's already been done in the past. Maybe they're referring to you to build on something that's going on, or just check to see someone's status and how they might be deteriorating or functioning, maintaining functioning. There are other different types of spaces for doing neuropsych screenings. As I mentioned, SSI, but also correctional settings. Irvinson recently came out with a great article about neuropsychological screening, and how he was proposing that you use this neuropsychological screening to rule out any central nervous system dysfunction for every inmate that comes in. That's not actually happening, but it would be a fantastic thing to look and see if the people are acting out, committing violent crimes, because there's some sort of neurological impairment going on. Today we're going to be talking about domains. Now when we're talking about neuropsych screening, we're going to be talking about domains of functioning. And specifically, these are the domains of functioning that we're going to be talking about. These are the domains that you'll also see in your report. When you're writing up your report, we're going to be talking about that at the very end. The first one, arousal and orientation, attention, concentration, as executive functioning, those two kind of go together, and then these three, language, visual, spatial, visual motor, and memory. I will be organizing this class according to domain. We're going to be talking about the domains, how to measure them, and then I'm going to introduce those domains specific to different things going on. So specifically, I'm going to talk about arousal and orientation as it relates to traumatic brain injury. I'm going to be talking about attention, concentration, executive functioning as it relates to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and I'm going to be talking about language, visual, spatial, and memory as it relates to dementia. Now, that's not to say that all of these don't overlap. They totally do. And I will be talking about how some of them overlap. But I thought to organize your understanding, that might be a better way of looking at these things. And intellectual functioning, we went over last time. But every good neuropsych screening should have a measure of intellectual functioning. And we have talked about the WASI, which is the Wechsler Abbreviated Intelligence Scale. The new one is coming out this month, which is the WASI 2. I highly recommend it because it's fully integratable into the WACE-4, which makes me excited. And it has the VCI, the Visual Comprehension Index, and the PRI, Perceptual Reasoning Index, and it only has 4 subtests. So I highly recommend picking that up, and that would be something to use for a neuropsych screening because it gives you a basic, quick understanding of the person's intellectual function. Also, emotional functioning, and we're going to talk a little bit about emotional functioning and how to briefly assess that. That's also important with regard to potential dementia versus pseudo-dementia, and we're going to be talking about that at the end. But first, the DSM-5. All of the different neurocognitive disorders that are coming out. Specifically, we're looking at mild cognitive disorders and major cognitive disorders. That's what it's going to be broken down into. You don't necessarily have to read this slide. It just talks about all of the different disorders that are in there: Alzheimer's, vascular disease, frontal temporal, traumatic brain injury, Lewy body, etc. Right? So mild neurocognitive disorder is going to be defined as evidence of minor cognitive decline from previous level of performance in one or more of the domains outlined. And it talks about concern of the patient a knowledgeable informant or the clinician that there has been a mild decline in cognitive functioning, and 2, mild decline in neurocognitive performance, typically between 1 and 2 standard deviations below appropriate norms. Everyone know about the bell curve in here? And how to look at 1 to 2 standard deviations below? Okay, fantastic. It came up at previous times that people didn't quite understand that concept. And so if you're looking at your bell curve, if you've got the average, if you're 1 to 2 standard deviations below that average, that means there's something to take into consideration. They might meet the criteria for a mild neurocognitive disorder. Major neurocognitive disorder, on the other hand, is the same thing. Concern of the patient, knowledgeable informant, or the clinician that there's been significant decline, and clear decline in neurocognitive performance, typically 2 or more standard deviations below appropriate norms, and also below the 3rd percentile on formal testing. So it's a lot worse. Yeah. And it goes into how with major neurocognitive disorder, the person is also not able to meet their IADLs, which is instrumental activities of daily living. So be aware, this is coming.